Welcome into Real Biz. I'm your host, Bubba Startz, and with me today from Clarity Over Everything, Charlie Sells. Charlie, welcome to the show.
Man, what's going on, Bubba? I'm stoked to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad we could make it happen. We are both probably going to sweat it out a little bit during this interview. You being outside in Tennessee, me being in my studio that has no AC. So
Right.
we're gonna blare through this. It's gonna be great. And before we get into all the things that you're doing now, you know, as a small business owner and what you're doing to help other, you know, small and medium-sized businesses out there, want to get a little bit of your backstory. So the floor is yours, Charlie.
Thank you. The very high level version. I went to school for marketing and actually fell in love with marketing in high school. I was able to go to a public high school that had all kinds of stuff that you could take advantage of, and the business track was one of them. So I've always loved communicating ideas. I've loved the creative side of marketing a lot. And so right after I graduated from college, I graduated into a really bad economy and decided I'm going to become a youth pastor for as long as I can. And so you would not believe how much marketing translates into church work and how much help they sometimes need, with newsletters and websites and all the things. And so was sort of doing marketing and messaging and content while serving in that capacity. And so after 10 years as a youth pastor, I got back into the marketing world, went and worked for Dave Ramsey and Ramsey Solutions on a couple of his marketing teams for about 4 years. And then worked for a very small agency for about 9 months, as most startups do. Seasons happen and things change that sometimes don't include you in the future. And so now for over 2 years, I've been helping small business owners reduce confusion and navigate complexity through better positioning so that they can be clear and aligned on what's next. The translation I like to use is I get to be the Alfred to your Batman. A lot of times these are people who don't necessarily have the resources to use an agency or have the full fractional CMO kind of thing. And so I get to help them, number one, do more of what they love to do. But I also get to solve all the problems, website, email, social, everything else that they don't necessarily want to solve.
Love the analogy. Secretly the most important person in the entire series. And without him, nothing goes. And the unheralded heroes, right? And I love what you said about, working in the mission, whether it's, a church and you're spreading the word of God, or for another nonprofit, or for a business. Marketing, it permeates everything. And I think a lot of people often forget that, and especially as they are starting a new business, as people who are maybe really good at something, they've been working in someone else's business for a long time. They know the process of the work. They know how to do the work very well, but then sometimes getting out that they have no idea what all they're going to take on, right? From the web design and email marketing to now social media has to be a huge part of everything, and content creation now comes along with that it is a struggle. It's harder than it's ever been. Right. And because so many products are just available online, to just set up a mom and pop shop and to think that, people are going to come in and buy it because they need it just isn't true either. Right. When they can go on Amazon and get whatever they want delivered within 24 hours, usually now, or an hour in some places, depending on where you live. That it just makes it so much harder. You have to be able to build relationships. You have to be able to build trust with your customers in that space and in a very limited time frame. So I love what you do, and really the focus on these small businesses and working in that, because you could have very well skewed your business, and with your experience, you could have gone, I'm only going to work with Fortune 500 companies. I'm going to get 2 or 3 clients that have huge budgets, and I can do that. And a much harder path to take is to help a much larger number of individuals. But I love, and I'm sure that you think of this because we know each other a little bit, but you are helping people. And I think that's probably what drives you more than anything.
That's right. And at the end of the day, I think as a small business owner myself, I've got to call in help. I've got to call in people who are doing the same thing. I'm not necessarily going to the biggest name or, the person with the most resources. I'm bootstrapping and duct taping and trying to, piece everything together in the best way possible. And so I think at the end of the day, what I started out doing is, really evaluating from the perspective of a lot of my clients, what wasn't working. And a lot of them were being prescribed things that they didn't need or that they didn't understand. And I'm not knocking on agencies, because I work with some great agencies. But I think sometimes the proclivity when you sign up with an agency is they know everything and they should just tell me what to do. And that's not always the case, because if you don't take time to get to know somebody's goals, what they want, what they can be freed up to do, and how to coach them in that, then it just becomes a pile of tactics. It becomes a pile of stuff to do, what I call random acts of marketing. And then eventually you look up at all of this stuff, all these functions that you have, and sometimes you understand it, sometimes you don't. Maybe there's a way to track it, maybe there's not. What I do more than anything, Bubba, is I try not to overprescribe. It is a really collaborative partnership in what I get to do, but that also frees them up to speak into their expertise. I just wrapped up a meeting with somebody last week where 80% of their business is absolutely thriving. It's been in it for about 3 years, know the client super well. And I said, all we're going to do really is put some different vocabulary around what you do so that you can capture the next client, so that you're easily findable, so that whatever you're doing next is supported in a way that shows you're not messing around. It really goes beyond the guesswork piece, because we can give broad advice. We can give, sometimes very, very niche marketing talk, but making sure that, somebody understands why we're doing what we're doing. That's the most important piece to me. And small business owners, honestly, are the most receptive to that, because they're not necessarily thinking about the budget costs. They're not necessarily thinking about the ROI. They know it has to get done, and they know that we're going to build it in an intentional way. And I think you were starting to touch on this as well, Bubba. In the world of AI today, yes, you can go build something really fast. I'm a big believer in get as many ideas out on the table as we possibly can, and then slow build from there, so that not only do we build it correctly, we build something that lasts and that they're going to get a lot of mileage out of.
Yeah, and it may be a little bit slower process, but what you end up with is a much more solid foundation and the know-how behind that. And I think, you mentioned coaching inside of what you're doing, that you're not just doing things for your clients, you're teaching them the things that they can do. And whether they want to do those things or not, that's an entirely different story, whether they have the time to do those or not, but you're providing them that education base. And I think that endears you to a lot of your clients even more, that even though now they know how to do it, they would still maybe rather pay you to do those things and build that lasting relationship, to know that it's done and done right, even if they have the skills now because of you to perform those. And I think that's something that a lot of business owners who work in these service industries are always very, you kind of stranglehold that service and that knowledge, right? But I feel like by sharing it, that you actually become closer with your clients, and you put them in a position where they don't want to leave you, rather than, feeling like they're overcharged for something that they could have been taught, and then eventually leaving because of those reasons, right? Building up the resentments instead of good sentiments.
Oh, 100%. I'll give you a client horror story, and then I'll tell you my philosophy where this is concerned. I've been working with a client for about 6 months now, and previously they were working with a big agency. And Thanksgiving rolls around. It's food industry adjacent, and all of a sudden, the client looked up on their social media and saw there was a product that they did not make that was put on their page. Mortified. I mean, people calling in going, "Hey, we want this thing," and the client's going, I don't make that. Where'd you see that? Oh, we saw it on your Facebook page. And I mean, that's, one of a million stories I think we could all tell about, interactions we've had where people just thought this is the right thing to go, and they don't talk it through. They don't take time to understand the brand. They don't take time to dig in and create that partnership. It just becomes about, receiving information and then executing on it. And so you're exactly right. There are some people who, I have a two-pronged approach to it. One is exactly what you've described. It's kind of the fractional marketing director model. I'm not trying to be an all-in-one agency by any stretch. I know what I'm bad at. You don't necessarily want me, doing some of the hard coding or doing a full brand design or anything like that. I contract that stuff out to people who are way smarter and more talented than I am. But to your point, like setting up an email system or making sure that all the H1s on your website are correct. Those are simple things that a business owner just doesn't think about. They don't have time to think about it. They want to go cook more, sell more, coach more, do more. And so there's an ongoing, kind of partnership that I get to do. The other piece that I've just propped up recently that I'm finding a lot of success with, Bubba, is doing these 2-week clarity and alignment sprints. This is for the business owner who has probably been doing something for the last year or two, is in a really good place, but they know something is just off. And so what I do is I do a full audit, top to bottom, of your brand, your emails, your social media, your website, if you have one, and we bring all that together in either a half day or a full day. We're gonna get a state of the brand. We're gonna find all of the gaps, all of the opportunities, and then we're gonna create a roadmap for success. A short-term one for 90 days, because you can do anything for 90 days, and then a 12-month outlook to say, if this is where you want to be in a year, this is what has to be true in order for you to get there. Both of those are just different pieces of the value. Some of them want a really quick hit, adrenaline shot in the arm. That way they can get some momentum and then pass it on to an internal team or an agency or something like that. And then the other ones, they really do want somebody to walk with them in their business, to the degree that they don't actually become a part of the team. And I mean that very lovingly, because my biggest value is in remaining objective. It's not in becoming so ingrained that I'm a extension of your team. It's more to be frank, that Alfred to your Batman piece, because that's where the highest value is for them long term.
Yeah, because if you do become, an invaluable part of their team, what happens when you want to move on, right? And you never want to feel like you're handcuffed to a client in the same way as well. I think you touched on some really cool points in there that I believe are extremely true. And in the world that we live in now, even more, is that every business is not the same, but also every founder or business owner is not the same. You need that time to audit and to do that. And on our music side, we do this, right? When we bring in a new client for our management services, it's a long approach. It is, give us a week to look at your social media and get an idea from the outside first, right? And then let's sit down and let's have a couple of really in-depth meetings where we're sitting down with you, learning your goals, learning about you as a person and what you want to do, where your strengths and where your weaknesses are. So we find out how we can all work together. If you're really strong in, graphic design, then you don't need me to do those things. So I'm not going to come to you with a cookie cutter approach and to do that, which you're just never going to get from a large agency. And the large agency is going to come in and they're going to treat you like every other client that they've ever had, no matter what the size of that company is or who that owner is. So I think what you are doing, and to more in depth, the fractional, CMO, which I didn't even know until you explained it to me. I'd seen the term a lot, but I never really understood what people were trying to get across. But it makes a lot of sense, right? As the world goes more independent contractor, freelancer, and people are leaving these large agencies and going off on their own, it has created this space now where most businesses don't need a full-time marketing team or agency with them. They need someone to come in, help them set up some systems, and then be available for them should they need that shot in the arm, a little booster, if you will, down the road, to keep them aligned, a new product rollout or something. Because most of it, especially if you're just selling products or you have a service or a restaurant, you can set up your website and most of your marketing and just let it run, and it's never going to really change, except maybe during the holidays you want to do something differently. And then you can easily be available for those kind of campaigns. I think that's a really awesome way, one, for you to run your business, and two, for companies to lower their costs on the marketing side, in that where there may not be a huge budget.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I mean, it's not all about money. I'm sure you know that, but there's such a strong time to value thing in the world that we're sort of creating now, where, if you wanted to spend 6 months with a consultant who's worked with Fortune 500 companies, please, like, if you got the budget, go. If you feel like that's valuable, go do that. But, I still have clients who will call me a year or two afterwards and say, hey, remember this thing that we did? We have a new iteration of that. Can you come back in and help us refine this or bring it to life again? And it's just about providing that value early on, so that eventually you're their first call. And, if I can't help, then I'll say, here's the person that you need to call. But at the end of the day, that's all small business owners are looking for is how can I get the most value out of this so that my business can move on to the next phase? How can my business go from where we are today, get unstuck, untangled, and really have a brand that we're super proud of?
Really incredible. So Charlie, you're 2 years into your, small business journey. What have you learned about your own business that's made you a better resource for these other small business owners that are now your clients?
Oh man. Some of it is literally just time. Like you don't know until you get into it and learn the hard way. You know, you get burned by a couple of clients and you have to adjust your contracts and make sure language is clear and everything is spelled out and all of that. We don't have to go into that because I think all of us have experienced that in some way, shape, form, or fashion. I think one of the most valuable things I did early on, and I didn't come up with this, on my own. I'm sure I heard it from somebody else, but about 6 months into my journey, rather than say out loud to everybody into the world, here's exactly what I do. I went to each of my clients at the time. I had about a half dozen, and unprompted, I just said, hey, can you describe to me what I do for you in your words? That gave me such a different understanding of the services that I was providing and the value that I was giving them. And it totally shifted everything that I did in 2025. And now today, the next iteration of that is being built, so to speak, in the form of all of these, sprints and workshops that I'm able to do for these small business owners. So I think listening to your customers is one of the most important things. And it's not just when I'm actually doing the work. It's listening to they're learning about their industry and letting them be the expert and educate me a little bit so that I can say, hey, this other industry is doing this. I'll bet you there's some opportunity there. I think just from a practical side, I think all of us go into it with the idea that we're going to somehow blow up and make, $600,000 in a year just because we, showed up and did all of the work. Some of this is just marathon style mentality where it can't just be about making it month to month or paycheck to paycheck or whatever it is. I would say one of the biggest wins I had is I hired a really, really good accountant that I can call anytime and be like, hey, can I write this off? Or am I about to step in it? Or what is my quarterly actually supposed to be? But, having them as an extension of my business has been absolutely invaluable. I would say too, probably the last thing in this regard is, we put a lot of stock in remote work. And I think that that's an awesome way that we get to function today where we're not beholden to borders. We're not beholden to zip codes or states or anything else. Right. I think one of the most valuable things that I have done is I found local people, local networking groups, masterminds, et cetera, to get involved in to sort of ground me to what's actually happening in my backyard. And I'm not trying to be, the Nashville marketing guy or, the just work in the state of Tennessee. I got clients all over the place. But that's been great to have, just some local voices that I can get together with once or twice a month and bounce ideas off of. We're solving their problems. They're solving my problems. You can do anything in a vacuum for long enough until it just, sort of becomes an echo chamber. So having some of those local voices who are not in my industry, by the way, has been probably the biggest win that I've had over the last couple of years. So the more voices I surround myself with, the more, I think the more well-rounded and the more well-versed I am in just the world of business. And it's also opened some great doors too, for new clients or repeat business or, whatever else happens to come my way.
Yeah, some great advice there for everyone. Listen to your customers, hire a good accountant, and stay connected, right? Both locally and with your people, and also having, some different voices in your life. It's very easy in the age of the guru, right, to kind of put all your eggs into one basket, only to find out that basket was full of holes. And I think that being well-rounded, like you said, is a great idea. I definitely take a lot of advice from different areas and people who are outside of the industry. There's not many people swimming. There's a lot of podcasters, but there's not a lot of people that are invested into it as we are and building a media and promotion company for other businesses through that. And so it's important for me to listen to my customers. How can we serve you? What are your pain points? And how would you describe me? Because I think as business owners, we get stuck in like what we think we do. And it's very easy to stay there when actually the world around you and the people who are paying you think of you in a completely different light. And I think that can really open your mind to what you are and who you are, and change how you start to approach your business. So some great advice there, Charlie. I really appreciate your time. Appreciate you jumping on with me today. I've had an absolute blast talking here. Anything you want to plug? We got the website scrolling across the bottom, ClarityOverEverything.com. Anything I missed?
No, that's it. You can go and learn about some of the work that I do and have done. I'll tell you this, my goal for 2026 is to work with 26 brands. We're halfway through the year and I'm already up to 14. So I love that. That was a non-revenue goal that I set for myself to just get in front of more people. And I made a very early decision not to become industry specific or niche specific. I knew the kind of business owner and the kind of leader I wanted to work with, but I didn't want to just get tied down to one particular lane or anything like that. So anyways, if that can be valuable to any of your listeners, if you want to do a sprint, workshop, audit, or if you need somebody in your corner to help you solve some problems for any period of time, check out the website, fill out the form. There's a free PDF there where you can do a self-assessment and see how clear and aligned you actually are in your branding and marketing efforts too, just to give you a little snapshot of where your business is today.
Awesome. Charlie Sells, thanks for being on the show today, and thank you for being part of the scene.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Bubba.